This is your Barbados Today Evening News Update for Friday, November 16. Thanks for joining us. I'm Fernella Wedderburn. The Ministry of Education is standing behind the principal of the Grantley Adams Memorial Secondary School, Valdez Francis, who is facing stiff opposition from some of his students upset about food served at the school's canteen. Students have been protesting at lunchtime, claiming that the food does not taste good and is expensive. Francis has, however, cut off access to food and snack vendors selling outside the fenced premises, which the children prefer. Earlier this week, Acting Education Minister Lucille Moore and other senior officials met with the principal. And according to the ministry, Moore and other officials are satisfied that the school's decision to remove the vendors from the premises was the correct procedure. Stressing that the children's security and food safety must be priority, the ministry voiced its support for the school's decision to bar students from leaving school premises without permission. The ministry also pointed that health inspectors from the Ministry of Health inspected the canteen and was satisfied that it met with the necessary standards. The ministry urged parents, guardians, and the public not to encourage students of any school to disregard the directives of the school administration. Meanwhile, the decision to ban the purchase of food from vendors selling outside school gates has won the support of veteran educator Jeff Broomes. The outspoken Broomes advised both students and the school administration that there are two options before them, but neither of those should include the purchasing of food from outside of the school's compound.
The canteen is there to assist students. If you have a problem with the canteen, there's two things. One, children should bring school their lunch. That should be an issue. Two, if the canteen is not providing the required, get rid of the canteen proprietor, whoever everybody is. I don't care. Canteen proprietors have to pay thousands of dollars to the school to sell every day. I do not see they should be undermining. You should be undermining them.
In news from the law courts, Chief Magistrate Christopher Birch this afternoon ordered that 4 women, 3 Colombians and a Guyanese be handed over to immigration for deportation. The order was made after Colombians 31-year-old Lindy Urani Rores Lemos, 19-year-old Joanna Martinez Palacios, 21-year-old Carolina Estupina, and 23-year-old Guyanese Handisa Amanda Adams pleaded guilty to assaulting immigration officer Carlisle Murray on November 13 in the execution of his duties. In other news this Friday, Minister in the Ministry of Finance Ryan Strawn says government has to change the way it conducts its business. He says evidence of this came just yesterday when reports surfaced that the absence of cashiers at the island's courts resulted in government failing to collect revenue. Strawn was speaking at the BIMTech seminar hosted by the Barbados Coalition of Service Industries.
As government seeks to modernize in not just the way that we collect revenue, and certainly the fact that the court wasn't able to collect revenue yesterday, even though the tax revenue relatively small part of our total revenue. The reality is that we intend to make it easier for the government to conduct this business, which also facilitates, in our view, the citizens to interact with government in a much easier way. And we see this really as a critical pathway in leading the charge with respect to how we change the culture about a lot of these things.
One service industry specialist is forecasting that the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program will result in the creation of new opportunities. At the same time, Executive Director of the Barbados Coalition of Service Industries, Graham Clark, is warning authorities that any strategy being used to create economic transformation should be a comprehensive one that included the entire country. Pointing to the adage that necessity is the mother of invention, Clark told the BCSI's BIMTech Digital Forum on Friday that there was no better time for Barbados to reinvent than now.
There's an old adage which says necessity is the mother of invention. A need or a problem encourages creative efforts to meet that need or solve that problem. And perhaps there's no better time to invent or reinvent ourselves as a nation than this. Bert, I'm sure everybody knows who Bert is. Bert will of necessity create new opportunities for us as we all seek to play our part in rebuilding our economy and repositioning Barbados for the future.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To the regional scene, in Trinidad and Tobago, a group of Cuban nationals today continued their protest for asylum outside the UN building in Port of Spain. The group tied themselves to the fence around the building with black garbage bags and also placed bags around their mouths, symbolic of them being muzzled from speaking. They are seeking refugee status in another country and want the UN to facilitate it. However, while they have had a meeting with UN officials, they say it was not a positive one, as they were told that they cannot do anything for them. One member of the group spoke to CNC3 television.
Okay, this morning the police come and arrest the rest of the group that was here in the morning. And at that time we were not here because I know to take a shower. I know they will have to go to the toilet because as you see, we have nothing here. We have nothing to go and they don't help nothing. That's why we are still here and we're going to continue here to resolve all problems.
So this group came out later after the other group had already been taken?
Yeah, not exactly because we were around here, but when we come back, all was finished. But that's why we are still here.
On the international front, a U.S. judge on Friday ordered the White House to temporarily restore CNN correspondent Jim Acosta's press pass, which was revoked after a contentious press conference last week with President Donald Trump. The White House withdrew Acosta's credentials last Wednesday in an escalation of the president's attacks on the news media, which he has called the enemy of the people. More in this Reuters television report.
I want to thank all of my colleagues in the press, and let's go back to work.
CNN correspondent Jim Acosta heading back to the White House Friday after a federal judge ordered his press pass restored, at least for now. The ruling, a rebuke to President Donald Trump for yanking the credentials after a fiery exchange with Acosta earlier this month.
That's enough. That's enough. That's enough.
Judge Timothy Kelly, ruling on a lawsuit filed by CNN, said the White House had likely violated Acosta's due process rights. Reporter Jan Wolf is on the story.
The ruling here was that the White House really didn't give Acosta any process at all, any opportunity to know the real reason for the revocation, or any opportunity to respond to their stated justifications for removing it.
The judge ruled that Acosta could resume work at the White House while the suit is pending. Press advocates view the decision as a victory.
The judge said that there has to be some standard for removing a member of the press's credentials. I think journalists would be concerned about anything that would make it difficult to ask aggressive questions. They've always felt that this case was a pretext for hounding Acosta for his aggressive questioning of the president.
And that's news. But for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper email updates and like us on Facebook. Sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. And we're also on iZoomi Media in bus terminals as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Fernella Wedderburn. Have a wonderful weekend.